I have to think absolutely yes. I never did. I wasn't interested in any of these men. But, oh yes, I think it was very much his intent to make that trade.
She didn't even realize what was happening to her at first. He made her feel chosen, special, like she was the center of his universe. But she was currency, a product being supplied to powerful men on demand.
Epstein told her the press had gotten crazy, and they discussed personal things such as books, music, and hygiene. Was he having a nut? Then he told her he loved her, would not be able to call her again for another month, and to be strong.
His last words on earth to his secret girlfriend, not his lawyers, not his family, her, a woman who allegedly inherited $50 million from his estate, a woman who reportedly traveled with him to every corner of the world, a woman who, according to people close to this case, knew every name in his network.
Everybody is a supplier. Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it, and provided the way for you to to have $1 billion and not create a fantasy island type environment has not existed throughout history.
Right.
And now, for the first time, there are reports that she's been asked about a name, a Hollywood name, a name that would make everything we thought we knew make perfect sense. But here's what nobody is connecting. Let's start at the beginning, because to understand what's allegedly about to come out, you need to understand exactly who Karina Shuliak is and why she matters more than anyone in the Epstein story has been willing to admit. She was 20 years old when she arrived in the United States, a dental student from Belarus. She had no money, no connections, no plan. She'd come chasing a guy she'd met while cleaning his teeth on a visit to New York, a regular guy, by all accounts. Someone completely removed from the world she was about to enter. That didn't work out, and somewhere in that heartbreak, in that loneliness of being a 20-year-old immigrant in a city that didn't know her name, Jeffrey Epstein found her. According to documents released by the Department of Justice, the first email introducing Karina reads like a transaction, not a love story. The girl's name is Karina. She's 180 centimeters tall. She's ready to work. Please write me the name of your agency. That's how it started. Not with flowers, not with dinner, with a measurement and a referral.
He would ask me to meet clients, friends of his, go to lunch or go to dinner.
Do you think he was supplying you to these men to have sex with them?
I have to think absolutely yes.
This was Epstein's pattern. It had been his pattern for decades. He found young women in vulnerable moments, women who were lost, lonely, or desperate, and he molded them. He packaged them. He positioned himself as a savior while quietly building leverage over everyone in his orbit. Patricia, one of Epstein's earliest known girlfriends, described him as magnetic, confident, irresistible.
He seemed to be kind of the center of the universe. He was so confident. And he was so attractive. And he was so incredibly smart.
Sound familiar? Because Karina said almost the exact same things. In a 2012 email recovered by the DOJ, she wrote to Epstein, "I love you. You're the purest man out of all men." This is what he did. He didn't just trap bodies, he trapped belief. He convinced women, intelligent, capable women, that he was the best thing that had ever happened to them. And in Karina's case, he followed through in ways that made it nearly impossible to walk away. He paid for her dental school. He arranged her green card. He secured her U.S. citizenship. He flew her on his private plane. He left her $50 million in his will, multiple real estate properties, and a 33-carat diamond ring that he described in his own handwriting as an engagement band. There are nearly 9,000 emails between them in the released DOJ files. 9,000. This was not a casual connection. This was the most important relationship in Jeffrey Epstein's final years. And she was there on the phone with him less than 12 hours before he was found dead in his cell.
Epstein said, "They're trying to keep me safe," and said that he told her he loved her, would not be able to call her again for another month, and to be strong.
He told her to be strong. Less than 12 hours later, he was gone. Now here's where this story shifts, because Karina Shuliak was not just a girlfriend. She was an organizer, an insider, someone who, by all documented accounts, had access to everything. She arranged his travel. She organized his household. She communicated with his staff. And in one email that researchers have flagged as significant a message that has quietly gone viral in Epstein investigator communities, she mentions taking a trip to Bali, then Kuala Lumpur, then and Tokyo, and someone in Epstein's circle responded asking how they could help her in those cities. Her reported reply, "I'm going to find a new girlfriend for Jeffrey." Now, people close to the case have suggested this could be a joke. It could be sarcasm, but researchers who have spent years in those DOJ files say her level of access, her knowledge of Epstein's preferences, his contacts, his calendar meant she was uniquely positioned to understand not just who he was involved with, but who he was connected to. In Hollywood,
Epstein, Weinstein, like these guys knew what these extremists liked and provided it, and provided the way for you to to have $1 billion and not create a fantasy island type environment has not existed throughout history.
Right. Cat Williams said it plainly. Epstein didn't operate alone. He had suppliers. He had a network. And that network extended deep into Hollywood, into entertainment, into media, into the kind of people who could make careers happen and make problems disappear. The files confirmed it. Thousands of redacted names, hundreds of thousands of documents either blacked out or sealed entirely. The people responsible, as one analysis put it plainly, simply won't be outed. But Karina Shuliak was in those emails. She was on those flights. And according to multiple researchers who have now combed through the DOJ releases, her name appears in correspondence that touches the entertainment world in ways that have never been fully explained. Which brings us to what reportedly happened next. There are now reports spreading across the Epstein researcher community and beginning to leak into mainstream coverage that Karina Shuliak has been approached to speak, and that in private communications, possibly through intermediaries, she has allegedly referenced a woman, a powerful woman, a woman with a career built entirely on daytime television, warmth, and likability. And that name is Ellen DeGeneres. Now, before we go further, let's be absolutely clear about what the documented record already shows, because the receipts exist without a single rumor attached. Ellen DeGeneres shut down her show in 2022. The timing is specific. Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison on June 28, 2022. The documented record confirms this. Ellen's show ended that same year after decades on air, generating hundreds of millions in revenue annually. Then, in late 2024, following Donald Trump's election victory, and more importantly, following increased pressure for the Epstein files to be released in full, Ellen and her wife, Portia de Rossi, reportedly left the United States entirely, permanently. They moved to rural England, put their Montecito estate on the market, and, according to multiple publications, told friends they had no intention of returning.
You know, she was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Well, this is why I say release the Diddy files.
Yeah,
Release
so,
the Diddy
you know.
files. Come on, Donald Trump, we want to know whose name.
So maybe she's hightailing out of there before all that is thrown at her as well. But what?
Now, in isolation, any one of these things could be explained away. People retire from television. People move countries. These things happen. But the question being asked by researchers right now, the question that connects Karina Shuliak's alleged private disclosures to the documented timeline is this. What did Ellen know? And how did Epstein know her? Here's what we know about how Epstein actually built his Hollywood connections. Not rumor, documented. He didn't walk up to celebrities and introduce himself as a predator. He positioned himself as a philanthropist, an intellectual, a man with access to the world's most powerful people. He donated to universities. He hosted dinners with Nobel laureates. He made people feel that being associated with him elevated them.
Jeffrey phoned me yesterday and asked if I'd show a friend of his around Bear Stearns. His friend arrived with his father, both from Switzerland.
That was his method from the very beginning. He used his inner circle, his girlfriends, his associates, his staff to create introductions, to move people into his orbit without them fully realizing what the orbit was. Patricia described it decades later with devastating clarity.
Did you ever feel exploited by him or used by him?
He would ask me to meet clients, friends of his, go to lunch or go to dinner.
Ghislaine Maxwell did this at scale. She recruited hundreds, but Maxwell was only one recruiter. The documented record, and this is confirmed, states clearly that Epstein had multiple people working for him in this capacity, and Maxwell was caught because of the scale of her operation. Others were never caught. And here is where Karina's alleged disclosure becomes explosive, because if her private communications are authentic, if she did, in fact, reference a Hollywood figure by name as someone Epstein maintained a specific specific kind of relationship with. That would mean one of Epstein's entertainment world connections wasn't just a name in a flight manifest. It was someone actively embedded in the network, someone whose platform gave her access to exactly the kind of talent, aspiring performers, and young people that Epstein's operation depended on.
She had no remorse in her voice. Gillian has no soul. And you know yourself what I've been through trying to take her down. And the reason why I've had to go through that is because she's a dangerous human being. She will reoffend, and reoffend. These people never stop, ever.
The victim who spoke those words was talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, but the structural point she made applies to the entire network. These weren't accidents. These weren't isolated incidents. This was an organized system with roles, with recruits, with rewards. And Ellen's documented proximity to that world, her friendship with Diddy, her relationship with Hollywood power brokers, her show's reported toxic environment that kept staff silent raises questions that the internet is now refusing to let go of. Let's talk about what happens to people who get close to exposing this. Ghislaine Maxwell, despite being convicted and sentenced to 20 years, is reportedly living in conditions that no other federal prisoner experiences. A laptop, bottled water while other inmates drink from the tap, meals delivered to her cell, a personal umbrella for her daily walks in the Texas sun, and fellow inmates who have been explicitly warned,
do not discuss her, do not put anything in writing, do not talk about her on the phone, do not make any trouble regarding Miss Maxwell, or we will move you to another location.
She is being protected actively. And when she sat down for her DOJ interview, she was remarkably consistent about one thing she denied everything. The list doesn't exist. The blackmail doesn't exist. She never witnessed anything inappropriate. She's never heard of any of it.
Absolutely no. There is no list. There is no, I'm not aware of any blackmail. I never heard that, I never saw it, and I never imagined it.
Flight manifests exist. Bank records exist. 9,000 emails between Epstein and Karina Shuliak exist. Surveillance footage existed until it was reported missing, but no list. And Cat Williams, who has been the loudest, most consistent voice naming names and identifying power structures in Hollywood, has made clear that speaking out comes with a price.
Infiltrate the Illuminati. Find out what the fuck they got going on. Get the information. Run back to y'all. Tell y'all everything I know. That's my job. But I don't know how many more times I'm going to be able to sneak in there.
He said that on the record, knowing what it might cost him. Now think about Twitch Stephen Boss, Ellen's executive producer, one of the most visible, beloved figures associated with her brand. He died 2 months after Ellen fled to the UK, and his note, according to reports, alluded to shame, to silence, to feeling unable to stay part of something he could no longer tolerate.
Twitch left his home the day before his He took an Uber to a motel about a mile away. At the motel, he switched his phone to airplane mode so no one could reach him.
He didn't call anyone. He didn't reach out. He switched his phone to airplane mode. He made sure no one could find him. That is the behavior of someone who believed that what they knew and what they'd stayed silent about was already too much, and that nothing he could say would fix it. Let's return to the center of this story, because everything circles back to her. Karina Shuliak spoke to Epstein less than 12 hours before his death. She was the last outside voice he heard. She was his emergency contact, his confidant, the person he wanted to marry, the person he left his entire financial empire to. And she was in those 9,000 emails. Every arrangement, every trip, every favor, every name. Researchers who have spent months in the DOJ files describe her as the most important uninterviewed person in the Epstein case. Not Maxwell, not the named associates, her. Because Maxwell was publicly managed by lawyers, by prosecutors, by decades of strategic positioning. Karina was quiet, private, and according to the documented record, she knew everything that mattered in those final years. The reports now emerging suggest that through a private intermediary, not a press statement, not a social media post, she has allegedly referenced a specific entertainment figure, a woman, someone whose entire public persona was built around being warm, funny, relatable, and safe. Someone who, it is now being alleged, had a very different relationship with Epstein's world than her public image would suggest.
In business, nothing is coincidental, or you would be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money. When these rappers get killed, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million.
Nothing in this world is coincidental. That was Cat Williams' whole point. Every move, every exit, every silence, there is a logic underneath it. There are financial interests. There are power structures. There are people who benefit when others stay quiet. Ellen shutting down a multi-hundred-million-dollar show for no publicly coherent reason, leaving the country before the files dropped. Her closest employee going silent in the most permanent way possible. And now Epstein's last girlfriend, who was in those files, on those planes, in those emails, allegedly pointing in a direction that everyone in Hollywood already suspects. But nobody with a platform has been willing to say clearly. Karina Shuliak has officially broken her silence once to confirm that a fake account on social media was not her. That was it. One sentence, delivered through an intermediary. But she's still out there, living in an apartment in Manhattan owned by Epstein's brother, a building that his own black book described as the apartment for models. She graduated from Columbia's dental program. She reportedly still has access to funds from the estate, and she has never, not once, given a full public account of what she knows. People close to the investigation say that will change. The question is when, and who she names when she does. Because if the reports are accurate, if there is a Hollywood figure in those 9,000 emails, in those flight logs, in Karina's private recollections of what Epstein said and who he was connected to, then the story that's been building since Maxwell was sentenced is about to reach a level that will make everything before it look like a warm-up.
I do not believe he died by suicide. No.
She doesn't believe he died by suicide. The woman who was convicted for helping him build his empire, who is currently serving 20 years, doesn't believe he killed himself, which means somebody silenced him before he could talk, which means the names he knew, the real names, the Hollywood names, the names Karina allegedly heard him mention in those 9,000 emails. Those names are still out there, still protected, still watching the files drop, still waiting to see if someone with direct access to Epstein's world decides it's finally time to tell the truth. The question is whether Karina Shuliak is that person, and whether the name she allegedly knows, the name that's being whispered in investigator circles right now, is the name that finally blows this entire thing open. If you want to stay updated the moment anything new drops, subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this story is not over, not even close.